Good morning. I want to get this show going before the parade goes by us and we miss it. My name's Tommy McGrath. I'm the president of the South Boston Citizens Association. Welcome, everybody, especially my students. Where are you out there? Our elected officials, our appointed officials, and everybody else who loves coming up here year after year. I need to thank a few people before I turn it over. There's a few teachers, I don't know if they're here, from St. Peter's, Maria Blasi. Miss Murphy from the Condon, Caitlin, I believe. And Noreen Rocha, who they do all the work up at the schools, get these essays and posters out there for you kids to participate and learn about Evacuation Day. The music, my friend Aaron, I met about four years ago from Boston University Pep Band. They have a big game tonight. BU's playing Providence, I believe, in the Hockey East Finals. Let's hear it for BU Band. And my executive board, who scattered all about the audience tonight. Without them, none of this happens. Everyone thinks I do it by myself. I got a great crew. I wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. At this time, I'd like to bring up Michael Creechy from the National Park Service, and he'll do the MCing, I believe, doing a few introductions himself, and we'll pass out the awards right at the end. So thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Tommy. And good morning and welcome, everyone, to Dorchester Heights in the commemoration of the 247th anniversary of the British evacuation of Boston. As Tommy said, my name is Michael Creasy, and I'm the superintendent of 3 national parks here in Boston. With its incredible collection of landscapes from the Harbor Islands to the iconic Freedom Trail sites, Bunker Hill to Dorchester Heights, Boston can be considered a national park city. These nationally significant places represent the spirit of social, political, and environmental revolutions that define Boston and what we were and what Boston is, thanks to the leadership of people like Mayor Wu and Congressman Lynch and the elected officials that are with me today. Just as important, though, are the citizen stewards of Boston. The South Boston Historical Society, the Dorchester Heights Neighborhood Association, the South Boston Citizens Association, and the South Boston Allied War Veterans Council. Thank you to you all. Now, at last year's commemoration, you may recall that we announced a $25 million grant from the Great America's Outdoors Act that was co-sponsored by Congressman Lynch to fully restore the monument as well as the grounds. And we were hoping that today would be that day that we would be putting shovels in the ground for a groundbreaking. But let me tell you, it seems like in today's world, the construction business and these types of projects are more difficult than it was when Henry Knox went out to Fort Ticonderoga and brought the cannons back to Boston. But what I can say is that we are actively working to have a contract by this summer, and our goal remains that this will be one of Boston's signature projects for the 250th anniversary of the Revolutionary War, and we will stand here on March 17, 2026, celebrating that act. This place is just too important. The story's too important to our city and to our nation to not see these monument grounds restored. As I look out at the many students that are with us today, it should be noted that many of the folks that worked to fortify these heights and took up arms were young people. As a matter of fact, Henry Knox was in his 20s when he suggested to General George Washington the idea of going after cannon at the far-off Fort Ticonderoga on Lake Champlain. Many thought that an undertaking so enormous and difficult was impossible. But you know what? This young officer, Knox, went up and he told Washington, I think we can do it. I think we can bring the cannon back from Fort Ticonderoga, and we can bring them back to Boston. Washington took him up on his offer and he said, go do it. He was a junior officer and he was now in charge of the expedition. That's such a scheme hatched by a junior officer in his 20s who had no military experience. He was a bookseller, was able to transmit an idea directly to General George Washington, and was seriously considered and acted upon, marked an important difference between the civilian army of the Americans and that of the British. In an army where nearly everyone was new to this idea of soldiering or fighting a war, almost everyone's idea deserved a hearing. And so I must say, and looking at all the essays and listening to the essays over the years, it's clear to me that you have been inspired and feel in your hearts the collective achievements of those who brought forward their ideas and courage to fight for our freedoms. Parents and teachers, thank you for recognizing the important role that history plays in grounding our children and understanding our nation's principles and our continued desire to achieve a more perfect union. And to everyone else that came here today as a witness to this day of remembrance, thank you for being here. We are truly blessed. Thank you.
I'm the president, but not the MC. We'll bring up Congressman Lynch, say a few words, and then the mayor, and then you guys can fight over who comes up next.
All right. Tom, thank you for that warm introduction. It is great to be here. So in the past, I remember when it was like 20 below zero and we were chilling up here and the wind was blowing because there was nothing to block the wind. So we're blessed to have a good day today. And thank you all for being here. This is I love this event. So you may not remember, but a few years ago, we actually had, I've got to thank a bunch of people, but let me start with this. So we had the Smithsonian Museum. The folks from the Smithsonian Museum called us and said, we have a map of the original fortifications that were built under the direction of General George Washington. And I'm a member of Congress, so they said, we want to go up to Dorchester Heights and we want to do some excavation there to see if it's still there. We don't know because all this was built afterward. And so they came up and of course, a bunch of politicians were thinking, this is a great photo op, you know? So we all came up and they had dug, so it's back there, right where that tent is. It says National Parks of Boston. Right where that front row of people that are standing, they dug down and sure enough, there were the original battlements, the fascines and they had dug and actually, you know, put cannon in place. So, and I've lived here all my life, but not until that moment when they actually dug down and excavated beneath our feet. We had heard years ago that stone there, that George Washington's horse was buried under that, which is not true, not true. As much as we dug, it was not true. But it suddenly dawned on me that it happened here. It happened here. This is the birthplace of the American Revolution that changed the world and put democracy on the map, and that George Washington and a ragtag group of colonists defeated the greatest military power on earth at that time. And the world has never been the same since, and it's been much better since. So I want to, first of all, there are a bunch of people I'm supposed to recognize and that I want to recognize. But let me first I'm going to let obviously I did not call Massport and have the planes redirected. We usually do that on Easter morning for our Mass. But I want to thank Lieutenant Colonel Hinson and the South Boston JROTC. Let's give them a great point. We also have the Colonel Henry Knox Regiment Color Guard and as well the Lexington and Concord Minutemen are here as well. So as Superintendent Mike Vesey was saying, we have a restoration project going up here. We were able to get a bill through Congress and supported by Democrats and Republicans to do a restoration, because this is part of America's history, and so we're not known for our speed. So we're a little bit behind schedule because of the supply chain issues and things like that. But the key is to be done by the 250th anniversary of our freedom, of the birth of this nation. And so we will definitely be done by then. So I've got a big group of my colleagues in government. I'll introduce the mayor at the end because I'll call her up for remarks. But we have our state senator Nick Collins, City Council President Ed Flynn, our at-large city councilor Mike Flaherty, another at-large city councilor Erin Murphy, our at-large city councilor Ruth Z. Lejeune, city councilor at-large Kenzie Bach, one of my favorites, city councilor Frank Baker, all the way from Dorchester. And the guy that's here every day for us, State Representative David Beal. So with that, you know, we are blessed with our new mayor, new for me anyway, and I'm sure she feels like she's been there 100 years, but you know, we're very lucky to have someone who appreciates the community of South Boston, that appreciates the challenges we have with all the change and development here, who always weighs in on behalf of the residents and realizes the challenges we have in raising kids here, and she recognizes the value that we put in our culture here, like today. She is a frequent visitor here in South Boston, comes to all of our events. We're blessed, and a great partner for me. You know, I'm in Washington 4 or 5 days a week, and I rely heavily on Mayor Wu to work on some of these big problems that we have. And she's a great partner, and I really do appreciate her and the work that she does every single day. So how about a nice, warm South Boston welcome for Mayor Michelle Wu. Thank you. I think that's my phone. I don't want to steal somebody's phone. Is this mine? It is mine. Okay, all right. Go get him.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Congressman Lynch, for a very generous introduction, and thank you to the superintendent for hosting us, for everyone on your team at the National Park Service who makes sure that Boston's strengths and beauty are able to be shared with the whole world, and the many, many visitors and residents who spend their time here with us. I am very excited to be here with members of my team, the best Veterans Commissioner anywhere in the country, Commissioner Rev Santiago. Thank you for all that you do. And to be joined by colleagues, as mentioned already, the Congressman is a champion for so many issues, and you see his heart in all of the dollars that he's able to chase down for this district, the causes that he weighs in on. In a couple days, we will be in a public housing community announcing a major renovation and investments that's possible because of his leadership and his advocacy. And so thank you for all that you do to keep our city beautiful, but most importantly, our residents supported and strong. We've been together a lot this month already to all my colleagues at the state and city level. I am still not there yet for my Sunday jokes, but we'll work on it more tonight at the banquet. Thank you so much to the South Boston Citizens Association, Tommy and Bernie, for making sure that this tradition stays strong. The JROTC and Lieutenant Colonel Hinson, thank you so much for being with us and making sure that we can always see the next generation coming up. And to the to our friends who are present with us throughout this season and the year, thank you so much for making this so special. Most importantly, I'm excited to see so many students here. You know, it might seem like we're talking about things that are a really, really long time ago, and they certainly are, but I hope that every time you think about our history in Boston especially, and you think about all these monuments to things that were hundreds of years ago, that in fact it's about your future. It's about all of our future and the leaders that you already are and will be. We're in some pretty intense times right now. We need to figure out how to make it work for families when it comes to housing and making the tea come on time and food security, jobs, schools. But Boston's been in a tough place before. And what's in the heart and soul of our city and our history is knowing when to stand up for what's right and not being afraid to get everyone involved in that effort with you. So I want to thank our teachers and educators for making sure our students can be part of this and be part of making sure our history is front and center in planning for our future. It's been 143 years that the South Boston Citizens Association has been organizing events and programming to keep the story of Evacuation Day alive and connected to our legacy. Many of these leaders remind us that without Evacuation Day, there is no Independence Day. And in Boston, we are very proud of our role there. That day in March 1776 was a critical juncture for the future of our country. George Washington's troops were outnumbered by British forces and stood their ground right here in Dorchester Heights, bringing to an end an 11-month siege of Boston. Not only that, they ended the 8-year-long occupation of Boston by the British. Throughout that time, 8 years, Bostonians had to tolerate constant harassment and even violence, including, of course, the Boston Massacre, where British soldiers took the lives of 5 Bostonians. Driving the British troops from Boston was an act of liberation and defiance and a plan for our future. And afterwards, Washington and his men turned their cannons on the HMS Renown, a British ship stationed in Boston Harbor. Slowly but surely, they forced the vessel out to sea, reopening the harbor, reconnecting Boston to the rest of the American colonies, and changing the course of history. I want to thank everyone who has a role in not only having established this monument, but in maintaining it and making sure that we have the investments to keep that going, especially in time for our 250th anniversary. And this is also an opportunity every year to honor this neighborhood and this community. South Boston has a long, proud history of stepping up to defend our country's ideals. To all the Gold Star families, all of those currently serving, and all the veterans who call South Boston home, thank you for your service. And again, a shout out to the JROTC group from Excel High School. I know you all train hard year-round and also do the work of importantly honoring and preserving the memories of our veterans at South Boston's more than 200 hero squares. Thank you for all that you do. And in addition to my colleagues in elected office and those I'm so honored to serve with every day, I do want to acknowledge some special guests here today. We have the chair of the commissioning committee of the USS Massachusetts, Captain Dennis Pimentel here, Commander Mike Siedsma, Yeoman Submarine Master Chief Gary White, and Petty Officer First Class Justin Westbury, who are visiting from Virginia and will be with us attending many of the wonderful events throughout this weekend. Thank you for your service, and please put in a word for us. We are still very much hoping that Boston can be the official commissioning site, and we want to do everything possible to make that event a big success if we are to host. I'm going to close not only with gratitude for all those brave enough to risk and give their lives to defend ours today, with gratitude for those who keep alive the tradition of honoring that bravery, but also with a reminder for everyone here that the fight that George Washington and his men fought here 247 years ago isn't over. So long as there are people in this world who are not free, we must keep fighting. We know that freedom is not only to be celebrated, but a universal right that must be defended and maintained. Thank you so much for everything that you all do in every part of that in each of our communities. We'll have a great weekend. Happy Evacuation Day, and see you at the many, many other events to come. So my role now, I think we're basically going down the line, and if it were up to me, we're about to enter budget season, and so the city council president would have been my, I usually make sure to honor the council first, but I am going to bring up my friend and someone who worked so hard to make this whole weekend and set of events a big, big success. We're with him. We're ready to do whatever he needs for Sunday. Thank you for all your leadership. State Senator Nick Collins.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. She's not just saying that. I saw her trying to chase Eddie down. Someone forgot about him at the luncheon last weekend, and she was very kind to make sure that Ed got his due. And I guess now I know why. It's about the budget. But thank you to the South Boston Citizens Association, to the Historical Society, National Park Service, Lexington Minutemen, the Henry Knox Brigade, and particularly to our students and our parents and teachers who encourage our young people to participate in this great event. We have a great series of events this last month, but this one's the best. Obviously, the banquet's this evening. The boxing show is tomorrow as we close out our ceremonies leading up to our parade. I want to give a shout out to this year's commander, the first female commander of the South Boston Allied War Veterans Council, Susan McDonough. And I know that we are joined by some of our colleagues that will be mentioned in a minute, but it is we have to give it up for the ladies because and I have to give a shout out particularly to the mayor, because if it wasn't for her support, and Susan can attest, we wouldn't be marching around the Heights, rightfully so, like we're going to do on Sunday. So I want to thank you, Mayor Wu, for making sure that happened. So when you see her out in the parade route, if you care about the Heights and that historic moment, give her a thanks, do a thanks. But, I'm incredibly honored to be here. These activities that I came to know of, I wish I was actually offered the option of doing the essay poster contest first when I was brought into the Evacuation Day ceremonies 30 years ago. As I'm thinking about the boxing show, I got drawn in with the boxing show. It was the first place I got punched in the nose. So thank you, Tom McGrath and the South Boston Citizens Association. But the history here is great. It's impossible not to be taken by this. This is the first victory in the American Revolution. It's intertwined with our cultural history here in Boston around celebration of a Feast of Ireland's patron saint. And it's incredibly important that we celebrate it. Without coming here every year and doing the events that we do to make sure each generation understands that, because it's complicated. We wouldn't be the country that we are, wouldn't be the city that we are, wouldn't be the state that we are. So the history here is great, and so are the people. Have a happy St. Patrick's Day and a happy Evacuation Day. And before I go, nothing to do with the budget, because we send him money. City Council President Ed Flynn, 25 years serving in the Navy, no stranger to supporting our veterans, and has done a great job as the City Council President. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to City Council President Ed Flynn.
Thank you, Senator Collins, and honored to be here with my colleagues in government that were already mentioned, and with my South Boston neighbors. And just want to thank the superintendent of the Parks Department, and really Congressman Lynch for working together to get this needed funding so we could renovate this beautiful historic place. So thank you to the Congressman, and thank you to the National Park Service and the superintendent, working also with Mayor Wu's team. I wanted to say congratulations to the students for the important work you're doing on these essays and poster contests. I know you worked hard and you really did some research and you studied about the topic that you wanted to write about. So we're very proud of you. You're a real credit to your school, You're a credit to your family, and you're a credit to this neighborhood. So I want to acknowledge and thank you to the students and their parents, but also to the teachers. I also want to recognize the Chief Marshal, who's a friend of mine, and Coleman Nee is a United States Marine Corps veteran. Coleman. And just finally, I had the opportunity to join Coleman and Commissioner Santiago down in D.C. for a Disabled Veterans Conference, and we were talking about the history of this area, but we also celebrate and work hard in support of our veterans, our military families that contributed so much here, making our country strong. I think also of your father, Congressman Lynch, in World War II, and so many men that went to World War II and Vietnam and in Korea, and Coleman was over at Desert Storm. I was in Operation Enduring Freedom, but we have a commitment to make sure we do everything we can to support our returning veterans and our military families. I want to say thank you to the South Boston Citizens Association, Tommy McGrath, and the wonderful work they do, bringing us together as a neighborhood. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy Evacuation Day, everybody. And now I have the honor to introduce my neighbor on the Boston City Council, City Councilor at Large, Michael Flaherty. Michael.
Thank you, President Flynn. I had the pleasure of going to Boston University School of Law, and thanks to my friends over at BU, they sent a great BU band over there. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause. They were sounding beautiful, and hopefully we'll hear from them again. And it's obviously great to be here as your at-large counselor and to recognize my colleagues, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Baker, Councilor Louisiane, and Councilor Bach for being here and commemorating this event with us. And also a shout out to, as mentioned, the South Boston Citizens Association, Tommy McGrath, Bernie O'Donnell, up here every year. I remember coming up here as a young kid myself. My father would bring me up here, and to know that I've been coming back ever since then, and what this day means to our city and to our country is for the kids that are here. You can probably liken it to what's happening and what you're reading about and hearing about in Ukraine, whereby you have another country trying to take over, this tyranny, and you have a very resourceful, a very united and very patriotic Ukraine trying to fight off an invading country. A lot what happened here many years ago with the British trying to take over here, and that moment, that defining moment when we sent the British packing, when we sent them out of Boston Harbor on Evacuation Day, was really the pivotal moment, and it was the birth of our country that no one can deny, and it was the success that took place right here where we're all standing and sitting, which led to that. So all I can do is to these kids to encourage to come back every year to commemorate, and when you're old enough, make sure you bring your children here to tell them about what happened here, and when you're watching in the news and reading about Ukraine, you can sort of make those similarities as to what took place here, and how brave those folks were, and how united they were in protecting their liberty, their freedom, and their country. And it was folks also over the years, in addition to Tommy and Bernie, it's folks like Tommy Butler and also Mike Baer. And I know that his wife Pauline is here, and Congressman Lynch sort of touched on the story, but it was Mike Baer, who was the president of the Citizens Association, who actually drove down to Fort Ticonderoga with a flatbed truck and brought this very cannon back to this specific location with a quick pit stop at the Mount Washington Savings Bank before it became the East Boston Bank. And two things actually marveled me at that point was, one, no state trooper stopped him on the way up post-September 11th, and two, how he was able to get it into Mount Washington Bank in the middle of the night, right? But to Pauline, to let you know how much we miss Michael, and we think about him often, but it's always today, especially today. You can see his face radiating in his grin, his mischievous grin, knowing that he played a pivotal role in the advancement of these exercises, the historic exercises here at Dorchester Heights, but also that he took it upon himself when no one else really was sort of mindful of the fact that there were actually cannons down at Fort Ticonderoga that were actually in this location that were used to defend our country and to help push the British out of Boston Harbor. And this is actually one of the replicas of that. So thank you to Mike Baer and the late great Mike Baer, and also to his wife Pauline. And we're here today largely because of him. So, and with that, I have the pleasure of introducing, starting his third term in the State House for our community, as the chair of the Boston delegation. He's also on the Public Safety Committee, serving as its vice chair. Our good friend and neighbor, and his grandmother Barbara Beal taught me at St. Bridget, State Representative David Beal.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty, for that kind introduction. I hope my grandmother gave you A's. There we go. But good morning, everyone. It's truly an honor to be with you here today at Dorchester Heights. We gather here every year to remember what happened on Evacuation Day, an important day not only in our city's history, but also our country's history. On March 17th, 1776, the British forces occupying Boston during the early stages of the American Revolution left Boston, ending the 11-month siege of our city. This was the first major strategic and political victory for the Continental Army and General George Washington, and was a crucial first step toward our victory in the fight for freedom and independence. Evacuation Day was no singular accomplishment, as Americans secretly fortified these heights with 60 tons of cannons and armaments without attracting attention from the British forces nearby, a very difficult task to say the least. Major General Henry Knox, who was only 25 years old at the time, retrieved the cannons and armaments to fortify the heights from Fort Ticonderoga in New York in the middle of winter, transporting the armaments 300 miles by horse, by sled, and by boat. His team even had the foresight to wrap the wheels of the wagons in straw to muffle the sounds so as to avoid detection. On the night of March 4th, the Americans began fortifying Dorchester Heights with those cannons. At the same time, General Washington ordered his troops in nearby Cambridge to fire on the British so as to focus their attention on what was happening in Cambridge to avoid detection of the fortification of the heights. The very next morning, the British discovered the cannons had been strategically placed here overlooking Boston Harbor, aimed at the British fleet and garrison. The British commander, General William Howe, remarked, "These fellows have done more work in one night than I could make my army do in 3 months." With their troops and navy threatened by the fortified heights, the British were faced with the decision to attack or retreat. Not wanting to repeat the casualties of the Battle of Bunker Hill, General Howe decided to retreat, and 11,000 British troops and some 1,000 loyalists left Boston on March 17th, never to return. Evacuation Day and the events leading up to that day paved the way for our victory in the American Revolution and our battle for independence. It represents the story of our collective strength, our resiliency, and what we can accomplish when we put our minds together. This is an important event in our shared history. It's our community's history here in South Boston. This happened here. Our city's history and our nation's history. We have that responsibility to ensure that we pass that history on to future generations. I'm grateful that the South Boston Citizens Association, my parents, encouraged me to participate in the essay and poster contest to learn about what happened here and the role that we played in shaping the world as we know it today. So I want to thank the Citizens Association for keeping those traditions alive. I want to thank the students for participating, the teachers for encouraging these traditions, and look forward to seeing you again here next year. Thank you and God bless. Now I would like to invite up a past president of the South Boston Citizens Association, someone I've learned a tremendous amount from about Evacuation Day, Bernie O'Donnell.
All right. We're a little bit under time constraints because the students have to be back at school at noon, and there's the flag raising of the Irish flag at City Hall Plaza. So I'll be, if possible for me, I'll be brief. I want to bring up really one of the great guys and a great author. If you want to, I'm only going to mention his book and another book. He wrote a history of the American Revolution, but I want to recommend too another book that I read to get ready for some of this, the kids are expected to know it, so I read the book. Henry Knox's Noble Train by William Hazelgrove. And I just want to make like 2 points that I never knew, and I've been coming up here for years. One, there were close to 59 or 60 cannons. All the cannons were different because all the cannons up at Fort Ticonderoga were different. So they're all different sizes. The second thing was I always thought it was oxen the whole way. Nope. It was a combination of oxen and horses. And they were all brought up, another interesting fact, I've known this though, by Teamsters. It was all union work and the soldiers of the Continental Army. So it's an interesting fact that even back then that was going on. So at this point, I'm going to come back up, but I want to bring up Bob Allison to talk about the Boston 250. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. One of the great things about being an historian in South Boston is you have the story being told much better by our mayor and our congressmen and our various members of the city council and state delegation. It's great. And all of the kids in South Boston. It's, monuments don't tell stories. Monuments don't keep history alive. We keep history alive by telling the stories, by remembering. So I'm really grateful to the Citizens Association and all to the teachers and the students who have participated in the essay contest this year. I mean, some of us are here every year, whether it's the 243rd, whether it's the 247th. 3 years will be the 250th anniversary of Evacuation Day. And that's really what sparked the Park Service into refurbishing this monument, which badly needs it. So we need to be prepared. And one thing that Revolution 250, which is a consortium of history groups in Massachusetts, is doing, is planning a recreation of the Knox March using the Teamsters, getting them back into this action in which they were so important. So I want to thank them, the Teamsters, again, and want to also thank all of our friends here who have been thanked many times. I did want to acknowledge that actually Colonel Hinson sadly is retiring as commander of the South Boston Junior ROTC, but he's built a tremendous program here, and the young people here as part of the Junior ROTC do a tremendous job supporting the neighborhood and representing the city of Boston. So I thank Colonel Hinson again for his many years of service, and Sergeant Machado and those who have helped to build this program. Thank you, Colonel Hinson. Here is something that happened on the 250 years ago today. Jonathan Lane from Rev 250 found this in the Massachusetts Spy. This is March 18th, 1773. Yesterday, an officer and a private of the 64th Regiment, those would have been a British regiment, ran for a wager of 20 guineas from Dorchester Point, which would be City Point, to the townhouse in Boston. That's the old State House. A distance of almost 5 miles, which was won by the officer who performed it in 40 minutes. It's an interesting story. We wonder why they were running on March 17th, why the wager. 20 guineas would be the equivalent of about $3,000 today. So that's not an insignificant thing. I'm just thinking in future years, maybe we could do something like that. I also tell the students who are getting envelopes today to look very carefully at what's in them in case the Citizens Association is going by the 1773 rules. But
oh, believe me, we make up the rules.
That's what makes America great. So I want to thank everyone for coming here, everyone for being part of this, particularly the students who have told the story and will tell the story. It is your story. It doesn't belong to historians. It doesn't belong to the Park Service or the politicians. It belongs to each of you. And each of you now can tell this story. And 50 years from now, when we are not here, you will be telling this story to grandchildren, to their children, and keep the history alive. So thank you all.
Before I start, I want to again recognize the councilors for showing up. It's another great turnout by the Boston City Council. I want to introduce also, he just took over the job recently. He replaced one of our favorite people as clerk of the Suffolk County Civil Court. John Powers, is he here? Okay. Here we go. Enough of this now. Well, listen to me. 247 years we've been celebrating this event. The citizens have been celebrating or trying to do this event since 1880. It took to 1901 to get this monument built, but it really was one of the founding, two of the principles of the association, if you can believe it back then, 1880, was one was to get the heights, the betterment of the community, and also to stop liquor licenses. Imagine that, liquor licenses in South Boston. Unbelievable. I don't know. Well, I added one. All right, here we go. Again, this year, I want to thank the students. Tommy's done it earlier, but the students and the teachers and the kids for participating, because part of the whole reason we do these events is have the civic involvement when people realize how important Evacuation Day is. And like reading that, like I mentioned that book earlier, we talk a lot about it, and you know, sometimes it doesn't register. But the fact of the matter is, when you read the harrowing experience, basically, of Knox on his travels, how close it come to failure. But it was because of his perseverance and Americans wanting freedom that he was able to endure. And it really is true. Without Evacuation Day, we wouldn't have had the 4th of July, because Washington would have probably lost the city, and the war could have ended basically in March of 1776. So again, that's why we do this. We are a historic neighborhood. Be proud of this neighborhood. So at this point, I'd like to bring up, I'll make the announcements. We'll do the pictures all at once. I'm gonna do the high school and then the middle school, and have the kids come up over here instead of coming up. Come up over here, get their award, and come over here for a picture, because we'll be we'll make this move along a little faster. The high school winner, Angelina Tang from Boston Latin School. No. She might have, is anyone from her family? She mightn't have got out of school. We don't have it as a holiday anymore. Okay. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Ian White, Boston Latin School. Second place, Patrick Kennedy, South Boston Catholic Academy. And there's a couple of thirds, so bear with me, so don't, I didn't forget somebody. Third place, Claire McMillan, South Boston Catholic Academy. Liam Nagel, South Boston Catholic Academy. I hope I get this right. Caden DePina at the Condon School. Let's give a big round of applause. The essay winners. Here we go. We did something different this year with the posters. We broke it up into third grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. 3rd grade, first place. And like I said before, sometimes there's doubles on these, so. First place, Samantha Cole, South Boston Catholic Academy. And I've got 2 seconds. Ellie McCollum, South Boston Catholic Academy, and Annabelle Hager, South Boston Catholic Academy. And 3rd place, Jack Costello, South Boston Catholic Academy. All right, 4th grade winners. Let me just let them catch up. Okay. First place, Aiden Monthander, South Boston Catholic Academy. Second place, Gigi Connell. Third place, Grace Zandy, South Boston Catholic Academy. And another 3rd place, Andrea Ariane, I'm sorry. Mealy Omade. Thank you. All right. All right, 5th grade. First place, Mason Finn, South Boston Catholic Academy. Brendan Nee, South Boston Catholic Academy. I know I screwed something up on somebody, but I apologize to St. Peter's. Another 3rd place, Yvonne O'Brien, St. Peter's Academy. Avon. All right. Another St. Peter's, Daniela Perez. Again, let's have a big round of applause for these young men and women. They're a credit to our community. I also want to thank, because I know we have Boston TV, but I'd like to thank South Boston Online, South Boston Today, and Cotton South Boston for covering the events also. They do a great job. They give us great publicity, because there's no real written newspapers anymore, and they really do a good job getting this information out to the community. Oh yeah, please, I'd like to, if you want to go over for the pictures, I'm sorry. Thank you again. I'd like to bring up Tommy McGrath for closing statements.
Once again, thank you on behalf of the South Boston Citizens Association. Before we wrap it up, we are going to do a wreath-laying ceremony. Commissioner, I'd like you to be part of that, representing the veterans. Any veteran out there in the audience, please come and join us on that on the wreath-laying ceremony. And while I got the microphone, Mayor, you listening? Congressman Lynch, you listening? Flynn, Flaherty, Collins, Bill. Poor kids got to go back to school today. They need that holiday back. Think about it. I don't know, home rule petition starting at City Council, back up to the State House. I really would like us to do that before the year 250. Can we get a commitment out of you? We need a commitment out of the elected officials. Get that holiday back. God bless. Thank you.
No, they're just probably firing the place. Yeah, that's what I was Shoot again! Shoot it! Get it ready. Cool, right? Imagine. Happy evacuation day.